What's up, fellow polymaths? In this video of the Java Fundamentals tutorial, we'll be going over interfaces. Interfaces are an abstract class that groups abstract methods and constant variables. Because methods and interfaces are abstract, no code exists in the method body of an interface. So for example, in a normal method, you'll have inside the method curly braces, you'll have the method body, which contains the code that allows the method to do its thing, but interfaces don't have that. Interfaces hide certain details and only show the important details of an object, which can make the code more secure. To access interface methods, the interface must be implemented, which is similar to extending a class by another class using the implements keyword. The body of the interface method is provided by the implement class. So remember when we were going over inheritance, there were two ways of inheritance. There was extending, which is done from another class, and there was implementing, which is done from an interface. Once a class implements an interface, then a class can override the interface's method. So just like a class, interfaces can have their methods overridden. A class that implements an interface inherits all the methods that is contained in an interface. Similar to abstract classes, interfaces can't be instantiated. Interface methods are by default abstract and public. Interface attributes are by default public, static, and final. So there are no private attributes in interfaces, since the purpose of an interface is to have its attributes and methods implemented by another class. Unlike regular classes, interfaces cannot contain constructors. Like nested classes, there are also nested interfaces. The signature of the interface method and the same return type or subtype should be maintained when overriding the methods. Unlike class inheritance, you can implement as many interfaces as you want, which achieves the multiple inheritance that we talked about in the inheritance tutorial. Interfaces can extend other interfaces by using the extend keyword, but the interface still needs to be implemented by a class for the interface to have any use. So for that last bullet point, you can think of a game like Hot Potato, where you have a line of many people passing on the hot potato to each other. Well, they can pass along the hot potato as long as they can, but the hot potato has to be used in some form, either thrown or slammed to the ground or whatever. And in this case, that hot potato needs to be implemented by a class. And that class will be doing the throwing the hot potato or slamming it to the ground or some sort of action. So just for a quick primer, so a class extends a class implements an interface, and an interface extends an interface. And remember, even though an interface extends an interface, it still has to be implemented by a class. So the syntax for the interface is pretty simple. It's similar to the class name, except instead of putting the class keyword, you just put interface and then the name of the interface. And inside that interface, then you put the methods. The difference with the class is that the methods have a semicolon instead of curly braces, because with interfaces, they don't contain anything in the method body. Interfaces are meant to be implemented by the class, which the class will override the methods of the interface. To implement multiple interfaces, you just separate each interface with a comma. So now that we've had a brief discussion over interfaces, let's try out interfaces and see how they can be used in the code editor. All right, so here we're in the code editor, and what I'm going to do is create an interface called living organism. I want to name it animal, but the animal class is already there. Of course, I could delete the animal.java file, but I'll just leave it there and create an interface named living organism. All right, so I created the living organism interface, and what I'm going to do is create a couple methods within this living organism. Remember, interfaces don't have method bodies in the interface. They have to be implemented using another class. All right, so in this living organism interface, I created three methods. There's eat, drink, and sleep methods. Now that I've created these three methods, we want one of the classes that we already have to implement these methods. So what I'll do is go to the person class and implement these methods. So here I'm in the person class, and all we have to do if we want to implement the methods is to just write the keywords implements living organism. So we see here that we've added the implements living organism, but the compiler is complaining the name of the person class. So the reason why it's complaining is because we haven't added the methods from the interface. So with interfaces, you have to implement all the methods. That doesn't mean you have to use all of them, but you still have to add all the methods that belong to the interface, which is a trade-off of having interfaces. So we'll just do that right now. So as we see here, after we've implemented the methods from that organism interface, those 3 methods were automatically generated by the code editor. And you see here they have the override annotation. And this basically means that we're overriding the methods from that originally belonged to the living organism interface. So we don't have to use all these methods. So I'll just use 2 of them. All right, so I added method bodies to the eat and sleep method, and I left the drink method blank. So we're going to go into the main class and then call those methods. So here I'm in the main class, and we're going to be calling those methods that we overrode from the living organism interface. So I'll just create an object called person object. Then after we create the object, then we're going to be calling those 2 methods, eat and sleep. Now that we're calling these 2 methods, we're just going to run the code and see what happens. All right, so we got the output that we wanted. We see the first line says the person is eating food, and the second line is the person is sleeping. Of course, this is very basic, and there's a lot more you can do with interfaces, but this is just a brief overview of what you can do with interfaces. Interfaces are used with a wide variety of things, such as video games, for example. There are many other uses with interfaces. Try some on your own and just to get a feel of how interfaces work. All right, here's our assignment for this topic. True or false? A method within an interface can contain code within its method body. Number 2, what is the keyword for a class to utilize an interface? Number 3, create code that contains an interface with a method in that interface and have a separate class implement that method from the interface. If this video was of any value to you, then please leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.